Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in the Wild West? Imagine living in a time when basic hygiene was a challenge due to harsh living conditions, difficult terrain, and limited resources. In this video, we will take a closer look at what hygiene was like in the Wild West, including the use of outhouses, the scarcity of clean water, and the absence of dental hygiene products. Get ready to step back in time and discover how people in the Wild West managed to adapt and survive despite the challenging circumstances. Due to the challenging living conditions that early settlers faced, the hygiene standards in the American Wild West were quite low. In order to maintain good hygiene, both men and women had to deal with inclement weather, difficult terrain, and a lack of bathing facilities. Additionally, finding clean water was a constant worry because it was essential for surviving in the hostile environment. As a result, practicality frequently took precedence over hygiene, which was frequently given a low priority. Living in the Wild West was characterized by unpleasant odors and a constant risk of disease due to a lack of bathing facilities, proper toilets, and spacious living areas. Because they were made of straw and hay and rarely changed, beds were frequently infested with lice and squirrels. Insects like flies, mosquitoes, and other creatures were a frequent issue because they got into food and human waste. This made it challenging to keep the area clean and hygienic. The absence of window screens made it simple for bugs to enter houses, outhouses, and other buildings carrying debris they had picked up along the way. According to Rose Pender, who traveled to the American West between 1883 and 1888, this made it difficult to get a good night's sleep. The abundance of bugs made it difficult to relax. Overall, maintaining good hygiene was difficult in the American Wild West, and people had to get by with what they had to survive. Outhouses were a common and necessary feature in the frontier despite their foul odors and bug infestation. For convenience and safety, these wooden constructions were typically placed close to the homes and homesteads. Once a hole was full, it would be excavated, covered, and a fresh hole would be dug nearby for future use. Even though the odor was frequently covered up by lime, there were still a lot of bugs, including flies and black widow spiders that could sting people while they were sitting on the wooden seat. Because toilet paper wasn't yet widely available, substitutes like leaves, corn cobs, and grass were frequently used. In the Wild West, clean water was also a rare and valuable resource. Outhouses constructed upstream from homesteads may contaminate the nearby water, frequently without the user's knowledge. In addition, stagnant water was a haven for flies and other insects who would swarm over it and deposit waste and excrement in the water. Outhouses continued to be a crucial aspect of life on the frontier, despite the difficulties with hygiene and sanitation. When it came to water usage, the American West faced a number of difficulties. Rainwater was gathered and stored in cisterns, but it frequently picked up dust and other pollutants. People were forced to practice water conservation as a result by not washing their dishes or clothes and by reusing bathwater. Families frequently shared a single bathtub, and taking a relaxing bath was seen as a luxury. Making soap was difficult in the West as well. Mexican women frequently used soap weed from the yucca plant to wash their hair because soap was typically made from animal fat or plants. Animal fat, which could also be used to make candles, was used by settlers to make soap. However, homemade soap was abrasive and might irritate the skin. Despite this, making soap was not given much attention, and body odor was seen as a normal aspect of life. Furthermore, the value of cleanliness was low in the West because people were reluctant to go take a bath because they thought it would expose their pores to germs and disease. After going without a bath for 10 days, Frank Clifford, also known as John Menon Whiteman, and John Francis Wallace wrote about his time in the West and the opulent sensation it was to take a refreshing bath. Despite the difficulties, people in the West managed to adapt and get by using the resources at their disposal. Since there were no modern dental products like toothbrushes, toothpaste, or dental floss available during the Wild West era, oral health care during that time was limited to tooth extraction. Problematic teeth would be pulled out using pliers by barbers or blacksmiths with no painkillers other than whiskey. Oral hygiene was generally not a concern, despite the fact that there were some ways to avoid extraction. In some public spaces, communal toothbrushes and knives were used to remove food from teeth, and communal towels were used to clean up extra beer foam. To hold towels, bars typically had additional rails, cup sides, or hooks, in addition to the bottom rails for leaning and spittoons. However, a lot of customers use these towels, which help germs and diseases spread. The constant presence of dust in the Wild West made life uncomfortable and unhealthy for both settlers and their livestock. Dust storms and strong winds may blow dust and grime into homes, making life challenging. Sarah Atherton experienced the pervasive dust and sun while traveling across the western landscape with her family. Sarah Raymond Hearn then described the knee-deep dust she encountered while traveling to the Montana Territory in a similar manner. We arrived at camp for the night after a 20-mile non-stop journey. As soon as we came to a stop, we saw the boys, who were quite a sight. Only their eyes, noses, and mouths were visible because their faces were so heavily caked in dust. It was a terrifying sight to see. We were all relieved to be clean once more because we had plenty of clean, cold water to wash the dust away. Spitting was a common practice in the western frontier that eventually had to be made illegal. In saloons, where spittoons and cuspidors were positioned at the front of the bar, men would spit tobacco into the floor. Even though the spit was covered in sawdust, respiratory illnesses like pneumonia and tuberculosis spread like wildfire. People slept surrounded by filth on the floor because saloons frequently rented out floors to travelers, as sawdust was a breeding ground for germs. Some locations have implemented a ban on spitting to try and reduce the excessive practice. The prohibition extended to train platforms and stations, and anyone caught breaking it faced a $500 fine, a year in jail, or both. Due to unhygienic plumbing, dishwashing, and laundry practices in the 19th century, diseases like cholera spread like wildfire. In the American West, these illnesses frequently spread to camps and settlements. Particularly prevalent and fatal, cholera affected both settlers and Native American tribes. Cholera outbreaks severely affected Mormon migrants, killing thousands of people. Mormons saw cholera as a test of their faith and a punishment from God. A significant portion of Native Americans was also wiped out by the illness, though smallpox killed even more people. In the Dakota Territory, Dr. J.B. Van Velsen asserted that cholera had been introduced to Yankton by Russian immigrants. From the lower classes, filthy in persons and habits, was how he described the Russians. He was unaware that the spread of cholera was a component of a much more widespread epidemic, though. There was a wide range of unconventional approaches used for hair care in the Wild West. Other people washed their hair with a variety of shampoos, while Frank Clifford washed his with soap and weed. Whiskey is a versatile liquid that has been used for a wide variety of purposes, ranging from cleaning to relieving pain. After that, it was rinsed with either rainwater or water that had been softened with borax and then diluted with castor oil and lavender. It was common practice for women to curl their hair using heated pencils after first giving it a thorough brushing or combing. Women were generally held to higher standards of cleanliness than men were in the Wild West. On the other hand, men in the Wild West, including cowboys and soldiers, bathed a great deal less frequently than they do today. They frequently went for extended periods of time without washing their clothes, and the only thing they did to stop being unclean was to take a quick dip in a nearby stream or rivulet, particularly during the hot summer months. They did this to avoid the chore of doing laundry. On the other hand, men typically refrained from participating in the activity during the winter months. These men did their laundry in various bodies of water, including rivers, streams, and other bodies of water quite frequently. So, that's what hygiene was like in the Wild West. It's fascinating to see how people have had to adapt to such challenging living conditions and make do with what they had to survive. The lack of hygiene standards and resources must have made life incredibly difficult. But it's incredible to see how people manage to persevere and thrive despite these challenges. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the hygiene practices in the Wild West. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this. And don't forget to leave a comment below to share your thoughts and insights about the ancient Chinese hygiene practices. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you at the next one.